Advanced Micro Devices, Incorporated is an American multinational semiconductor company based in Sunnyvale, California, United States, that develops computer processors and related technologies for business and consumer markets. While initially it manufactured its own processors, the company became fabless after GlobalFoundries was spun off in 2009. AMD's main products include microprocessors, motherboard chipsets, embedded processors and graphics processors for servers, workstations and personal computers, and embedded systems applications. AMD is the second largest global supplier of microprocessors based on the x86 architecture and also one of the largest suppliers of graphics processing units. It also owns 8.6% of Spansion, a supplier of non-volatile flash memory. AMD is the only significant rival to Intel in the central processor market for personal computers. Since acquiring ATI in 2006, AMD and its competitor NVIDIA have dominated the discrete graphics processor unit market. Corporate history. Advanced Micro Devices was founded on May 1, 1969, by a group of former executives from Fairchild Semiconductor, including Jerry Sanders III, Ed Turney, John Kerry, Sven Simonson, Jack Gifford and three members from Gifford's team, Frank Bott, Jim Giles, and Larry Stunger. The company began as a producer of logic chips, then entered the RAM chip business in 1975. That same year, it introduced a reverse-engineered clone of the Intel 8080 microprocessor. During this period, AMD also designed and produced a series of bit slice processor elements which were used in various mini-computer designs. During this time, AMD attempted to embrace the perceived shift toward RISC with their own AMD M29000 processor, and also attempted to diversify into graphics and audio devices as well as EEPROM memory. It had some success in the mid-1980s with the 7910 Armenian DRAMs and 7911 Armenian DRAMs World Chip FSK modem, one of the first multi-standard devices that covered both Bell and CCITT tones at up to 1200 baud half duplex or 300/300 full duplex. The 29K survived as an embedded processor and AMD spin-off Spansion continues to make flash memory. AMD decided to switch gears and concentrate solely on Intel-compatible microprocessors and flash memory, placing them in direct competition with Intel for x86-compatible processors and their flash memory secondary markets. AMD announced the acquisition of ATI Technologies on July 24, 2006. AMD paid $4.3 billion in cash and 58 million shares of his stock, for a total of $5.4 billion. The transaction completed on October 25, 2006. Since 2010, all of the company's graphics processing products have been marketed under the AMD brand name. It was reported in December 2006 that AMD, along with its main rival in the graphics industry NVIDIA, received subpoenas from the Justice Department regarding possible antitrust violations in the graphics card industry, including the act of fixing prices. In October 2008, AMD announced plans to spin off manufacturing operations in the form of a multi-billion-dollar joint venture with Advanced Technology Investment Company, an investment company formed by the government of Abu Dhabi. The new venture is called GlobalFoundries Incorporated. This partnership will allow AMD to focus solely on chip design. The spin-off was accompanied by the loss of approximately 1,000 jobs, or about 10% of AMD's global workforce. In August 2011, AMD announced that former Lenovo executive Rory Reid would be joining the company as CEO, following Dirk Mayer. AMD announced in November 2011 plans to lay off more than 10% of its employees from across all divisions worldwide. This action was to have completed by Q1 2012 with most exits before Christmas 2011. AMD announced in October 2012 plans to release an additional 15% of its workforce with an unspecified effective date to reduce costs in the face of declining sales revenue. AMD acquired the low-power server manufacturer SeaMicro in early 2012 as part of a strategy to regain lost market share in the server chip market. Processor market history. IBM PC and the x86 architecture. In February 1982, AMD signed a contract with Intel, becoming a licensed second-source manufacturer of 8086 and 8088 processors. IBM wanted to use the Intel 8088 in its IBM PC, but IBM's policy at the time was to require at least two sources for its chips. AMD later produced the AM286 under the same arrangement. By the end of 1986, IBM PC clones had overtaken the market and Intel decided to no longer abide by IBM's rules, refusing to convey the technical details of the i386 part. AMD challenged Intel's decision to cancel the agreement and won an arbitration, but Intel disputed this decision. A long legal dispute followed, ending in 1994 when the Supreme Court of California sided with AMD. Subsequent legal disputes centered on whether AMD had legal rights to use derivatives of Intel's microcode. In the face of uncertainty, AMD was forced to develop clean-room design versions of Intel code. In 1991, AMD released the M386, its clone of the Intel 386 processor. It took less than a year for the company to sell 1 million units. Later, the M486 was used by a number of large original equipment manufacturers, including Compaq, and proved popular. Another M486-based product, the M5X86, continued AMD's success as a low-price alternative. However, as product cycles shortened in the PC industry, the process of reverse engineering Intel's products became an ever less viable strategy for AMD. K5, K6, Athlon, Duran, and Sempron. AMD's first in-house x86 processor was the K5, which was launched in 1996. The K was a reference to kryptonite. The numeral 5 refers to the fifth generation of x86 processors. Rival Intel had previously introduced its line of fifth-generation x86 processors as Pentium because the U.S. Trademark and Patent Office had ruled that mere numbers could not be trademarked. In 1996, AMD purchased NEX Gen, specifically for the rights to their NX series of x86-compatible processors. AMD gave the NEX Gen design team their own building, left them alone, and gave them time and money to rework the NX686. The result was the K6 processor, introduced in 1997. Although the K6 was based on Socket 7, variants such as K6-3450 were faster than Intel's Pentium II. The K7 was AMD's 7th-generation x86 processor, making its debut on June 23, 1999, under the brand name Athlon. Unlike previous AMD processors, it could not be used on the same motherboards as Intel's, due to licensing issues surrounding Intel's Slot 1 connector, and instead used a Slot A connector, reference to the Alpha processor bus. The Duran was a lower-cost and limited version of the Athlon in a 462-pin socketed PGA or soldered directly onto the motherboard. Sempron was released as a lower-cost Athlon XP, replacing Duran in the socket A PGA era. It has since been migrated upward to all new sockets, up to AM3. On October 9, 2001, the Athlon XP was released. On February 10, 2003, the Athlon XP with 512 KB L2 cache was released. Athlon 64, Opteron and Phenom. The K8 was a major revision of the K7 architecture, with the most notable features being the addition of a 64-bit extension to the x86 instruction set, the incorporation of a non-chip memory controller, and the implementation of an extremely high-performance point-to-point interconnect called Hypertransport, as part of the Direct Connect architecture. The technology was initially launched as the Opteron server-oriented processor on April 22, 2003. Shortly thereafter it was incorporated into a product for desktop PCs, branded Athlon 64. On April 21, 2005, AMD released the first dual-core Opteron, an x86-based server CPU. A month later, AMD released the Athlon 64X2, the first desktop-based dual-core processor family. In May 2007 AMD abandoned the Strings 64 in its dual-core desktop product branding, becoming Athlon X2. downplaying the significance of 64-bit computing in its processors. Further updates involved improvements to the microarchitecture, and a shift of target market from mainstream desktop systems to value dual-core desktop systems. In 2008, AMD started to release dual-core Sempron processors exclusively in China, branded as the Sempron 2000 series, with lower hyper-transport speed and smaller L2 cache. Thus AMD completed its dual-core product portfolio for each market segment. After K8 came K10. In September 2007 AMD released the first K10 processors, a Euro 9 quad-core third-generation Opteron processors, a Euro, followed in November by the Phenom processor for desktop. K10 processors came in dual-core, triple-core, and quad-core versions, with all cores on a single die. AMD released a new platform, codenamed Spider, which utilized the new Phenom processor, as well as an A770 GPU and a 790GXFX chipset from the 700 Armenian DRAM's Chipset series. However, AMD built the Spider at 65 nanometers, which was uncompetitive with Intel's smaller and more power-efficient 45 nanometers. In January 2009, AMD released a new processor line dubbed Phenom 2, a refresh of the original Phenom built using the 45nm process. AMD's new platform, codenamed a Euro OE Dragon, a Euro, utilized the new Phenom 2 processor, and an ATI A770 GPU from the A700 GPU family, as well as a 790GXFX chipset from the 700 Armenian DRAM's Chipset series. The Phenom 2 came in dual-core, triple-core and quad-core variants, all using the same die, with cores disabled for the triple-core and dual-core versions. The Phenom 2 resolved issues that the original Phenom had, including a low clock speed, a small L3 cache and a Coolner-Wyatt bug that decreased performance. The Phenom 2 cost less but was not performance competitive with Intel's mid to high-range Core 2 quads. The Phenom 2 also enhanced the Phenom's memory controller, allowing it to use DDR3 in a new native socket AM3, while maintaining backwards compatibility with AM2+, the socket used for the Phenom, and allowing the use of the DDR2 memory that was used with the platform. In April 2010, AMD released a new Phenom 2 hexa-core processor codenamed Thuban. This was a totally new die based on the hexa-core Euro OE Istanbul Euro Opteron processor. It included AMD's Euro OE Turbo Core Euro technology, which allows the processor to automatically switch from 6 cores to 3 faster cores when more pure speed is needed. AMD's Enthusiast platform, codenamed Leo, utilized the new Phenom 2, a new chipset from the 800 Armenian DRAM's Chipset series and an ATI Euro OE Cypress Euro GPU from the Evergreen GPU series. The Megni Cowers and Lisbon server parts were released in 2010. The Megni Cowers part came in 8 to 12 cores and the Lisbon part in 4 and 6 core parts. Megni Cowers is focused on performance while the Lisbon part is focused on high performance per watt. Megni Cowers is an MCM with 2 hexa-core Euro OE Istanbul Euro Opteron parts. This will use a new G34 socket for dual and quad socket processors and thus will be marketed as Opteron 61XX series processors. Lisbon uses C32 socket certified for dual socket use or single socket use only and thus will be marketed as Opteron 41XX processors. Both will be built on a 45 nanometers SOI process. Fusion, Bobcat, Bulldozer, Vishera, and Hondo. Following AMD's 2006 acquisition of Canadian graphics company ATI Technologies, an initiative codenamed Fusion was announced to merge a CPU and GPU on some of their mainstream chips, including a minimum 16-lane PCI Express link to accommodate external PCI Express peripherals, thereby eliminating the requirement of a Northbridge chip completely from the motherboard. The initiative intended to see some of the processing originally done on the CPU move to the GPU, which is better optimized for calculations such as floating-point unit calculations. This is referred to by AMD as an accelerated processing unit. Llano is to be the second APU released, targeted at the mainstream market. This will incorporate a CPU and GPU on the same die, as well as the Northbridge functions, and labeled on AMD's new timeline as using socket FM1 with DDR3 memory. This will, however, not be based on the new Bulldozer core and will in fact be similar to the current Phenom 2 DEN processor serving as AMD's high-end processor until the release of the new 32nm parts. On September 28, 2011, AMD said that the third quarter of 2011 won't have a 10% revenue increase as AMD planned before, because of the manufacturing problem with the 32nm Llano Fusion chips. Bulldozer is AMD's CPU codename for the second latest server and desktop processors released on October 12, 2011. This Family 15 hours microarchitecture is the successor to the Family 10 hours microarchitecture space design methodology. Bulldozer is designed from scratch, not a development of earlier processors. The core is specifically aimed at 10-125 WTDP computing products. AMD claims dramatic performance per watt efficiency improvements in high-performance computing applications with Bulldozer cores. While hopes were very high that Bulldozer would bring AMD to be performance competitive with arch-rival Intel once more, most benchmarks were disappointing. In some cases the new Bulldozer products were slower than the K10 model they were built to replace. Hondo is AMD's latest processor series used in tablet computers. Vishera is AMD's current FX series processor lineup targeting the desktop performance market. It uses second-generation Bulldozer-derived cores codenamed Pili Driver. Llano was AMD's first APU built for laptops. Jaguar is the latest x86 processor core from AMD aimed at the low-power low-cost market. Jaguar's predecessor, Bobcat, was revealed during a speech from AMD Executive Vice President Henri Richard in Computex 2007 and was put into production Q1 2011. One of the major supporters was Executive Vice President Mario A. Rivas, who felt it was difficult to compete in the x86 market with a single core optimized for the 10-100W range and actively promoted the development of the simpler core with a target range of 1-10 watts. In addition, it was believed that the core could migrate into the handheld space if the power consumption can be reduced to less than 1 AW. ARM architecture-based chip, AMD intends to release 64-bit ARM system on chips that will begin sampling in early 2014 and release later in the year. They will be for use in servers as a low-power alternative to current x86 chips. Their implementation using the ARM architecture is codenamed Seattle, based on the Cortex-A57 core design, and will contain 8 and 16 cores each. They will include the proprietary C-Micro Freedom Fabric, as well as support for 128 GB RAM, and 10 Gigabit Ethernet. Products and technologies. Graphics products. AMD's current portfolio of dedicated graphics processors includes product families and associated technologies aimed at the consumer, professional and high-performance computing markets. Radeon, a Euro brand for consumer line of graphics cards. Mobility. Radeon is power-optimized versions of Radeon graphics chips for use in laptops. AMD FirePro, a Euro brand for professional line of graphics cards for workstations. Succeeds the Fire GL series of workstation CAD CAM video cards, the Fire MV series and the AMD FireStream series. AMD FireStream, a Euro brand for discontinued product line targeting stream processing and GPU is used in various industries. AMD Fire MV, a Euro brand for discontinued product line targeting multi-monitor setups in professional environments. AMD's current portfolio of technologies to be found in their products. AMD IFNITY, a Euro facilitates multi-monitor setup of to 6 monitors per graphics card. AMD True Audio, a Euro acceleration of audio calculations. Unified Video Decoder, a Euro acceleration of video decoding. Video Codec Engine, a Euro acceleration of video encoding. AMD Catalyst is a collection of proprietary device drivers software available for Microsoft Windows and Linux. Since 2007, the AMD have decidedly participated in the development of free and open source graphics device drivers. The programming specifications for a number of chipsets and features were published in several rounds, and code is being contributed to the Direct Rendering Manager in the Linux kernel by employees hired by AMD for this purpose. AMD chipsets. Before the launch of Athlon 64 processors in 2003, AMD designed chipsets for their processors spanning the K6 and K7 processor generations. The chipsets include the AMD 640, AMD 751 and the AMD 761 chipsets. The situation changed in 2003 with the release of Athlon 64 processors, and AMD chose not to further design its own chipsets for its desktop processors while opening the desktop platform to allow other firms to design chipsets. This was the A-OE Open Platform Management Architecture with ATI, VIA and SIS developing their own chipset for Athlon 64 processors and later Athlon 64X2 and Athlon 64FX processors, including the Quad-FX platform chipset from NVIDIA. The initiative went further with the release of Opteron server processors as AMD stopped the design of server chipsets in 2004 after releasing the AMD 8111 chipset, and again opened the server platform for firms to develop chipsets for Opteron processors. As of today, NVIDIA and Broadcom are the sole designing firms of server chipsets for Opteron processors. As the company completed the acquisition of ATI Technologies in 2006, the firm gained the ATI design team for chipsets which previously designed the Radeon XPR ESS200 and the Radeon XPR ESS3200 chipsets. AMD then renamed the chipsets for AMD processors under AMD branding. In February 2007, AMD announced the first AMD-branded chipset since 2004 with the release of the 690 Armenian DRAMs G chipset, targeted at mainstream IGP computing. It was the industry's first to implement a HDMI 1.2 port on motherboards, shipping for more than 1 million units. While ATI had aimed at releasing an Intel IGP chipset, the plan was scrapped and the inventories of Radeon XPR ESS1250 was sold to two OEMs, Abit and ASRock. Although AMD states the firm will still produce Intel chipsets, Intel had not granted the license of 1333 MHz FSB to ATI. On November 15, 2007, AMD announced a new chipset series portfolio, the 7 Armenian DRAMs series chipsets, covering from enthusiast multi-graphics segment to value IGP segment, to replace the 480,580 Armenian DRAMs chipsets and 690 Armenian DRAMs series chipsets, marking AMD's first enthusiast multi-graphics chipset. Discrete graphics chipsets were launched on November 15, 2007 as part of the codenamed Spider desktop platform, and IGP chipsets were launched at a later time in spring 2008 as part of the codenamed Cartwheel platform. AMD returned to the server chipsets market with the 800 Armenian DRAMs S-series server chipsets. It includes support for up to 6 SATA 6.0-bit S ports, the C6 power state, which is featured in Fusion processors, and AHCI 1.2 with SATA FISA Euro-based switching support. This is a chipset family supporting Phenom processors in Quad-FX enthusiast platform, IGP, 890GX. AMD Live. As of 2007, AMD Live was a platform marketing initiative focusing the consumer electronics segment, with an active TV initiative for streaming internet videos from web video services such as YouTube, into AMD Live PC as well as connected digital TVs, together with a scheme for an ecosystem of certified peripherals for the ease of customers to identify peripherals for AMD Live. Systems for digital home experience, called AMD Live. Ready. AMD Quad-FX platform. The AMD Quad-FX platform, being an extreme enthusiast platform, allows two processors to connect through hypertransport, which is a similar setup to dual processor servers, excluding the use of buffered memory registered memory DIMM modules, and a server motherboard. The current setup includes two Athlon 64FX70 series processors and a special motherboard. AMD pushed the platform for the surging demands for what AMD calls megatasking, the ability to do more tasks on a single system. The platform refreshes with the introduction of non-FX processors and the next generation RD790 chipset, codenamed FASN8. Server platform, AMD's first multiprocessor server platform, codenamed FireArno, consists of AMD SR5690 plus SP5100 server chipsets, supporting 45 nanometers, codenamed Shanghai Socket F+ processors and registered DDR2 memory. It was followed by the Maranello platform supporting 45 nanometers, codenamed Istanbul, Socket G34 processors with DDR3 memory. On single processor platform, the codenamed Catalunya platform consists of codenamed Suzuka 45NM quad-core processor with AMD SR5580 plus SP5100 chipset and DDR3 support. AMD's x86 virtualization extension to the 64-bit x86 architecture is named AMD Virtualization, also known by the abbreviation AMDV, and is sometimes referred to by the codename Pacifica. AMD processors using Socket AM2, Socket S1, and Socket F include AMD Virtualization support. AMD Virtualization is also supported by Release 2 of the Opteron processors. The third generation of Opteron processors will see an update in virtualization technology, specifically the rapid virtualization indexing, alongside the tagged TLB and device exclusion vector. AMD also promotes the AMD I/O virtualization technology for I/O virtualization. The AMD I/O MMU specification has been updated to version 1.2. The specification describes the use of a hypertransport architecture. AMD's server initiatives include the following: AMD Trinity provides support for virtualization, security and management. Key features include AMDV technology, codenamed Presidio Trusted Computing Platform Technology, I/O virtualization and open management partition. AMD Radeon, future client similar to the Jack PC to be connected through network to a blade server for central management, to reduce client form factor sizes with AMD Trinity features. Terenza, coprocessors support through interconnects such as Hypertransport, and PCI Express, also opening processor socket architecture to other manufacturers. Sun and IBM are among the supporting consortium, with rumored POWER7 processors would be socket compatible to future Opteron processors. The move made rival Intel respond with the opening of front-side bus architecture as well as Genexio, a collaboration project with IBM for coprocessors connected through PCI Express. Various certified systems programs and platforms, AMD Commercial Stable Image Platform, together with AMD Validated Server Program, AMD True Server Solutions, AMD Thermally Tested Bare Bones Platforms and AMD Validated Server Program, providing certified systems for business from AMD. Desktop platforms, starting in 2007, AMD, following Intel, began using codenames for its desktop platforms such as Spider or Dragon. The platforms, unlike Intel's approach, will refresh every year, putting focus on platform specialization. The platform includes components such as AMD processors, chipsets, ATI graphics and other features, but continued to the open platform approach, and welcome components from other vendors such as VIA, SIS, and NVIDIA, as well as wireless product vendors. Updates to the platform include the implementation of IOMMU I/O virtualization with 45 nanometers generation of processors, and the 800 Armenian DRAMs chipset series in 2009. Embedded systems. In February 2002, AMD acquired Alchemy Semiconductor for its Alchemy line of MIPS processors for the handheld and portable media player markets. On June 13, 2006, AMD officially announced that the line was to be transferred to Razer Microelectronics, Incorporated, a designer of MIPS processors for embedded applications. In August 2003, AMD also purchased the Geode business, which was originally the Cyrix Media GX from National Semiconductor, to augment its existing line of embedded x86 processor products. During the second quarter of 2004, It launched new low-power Geode NX processors based on the K7 Thoroughbred architecture with speeds of fanless processors 667 MHz and 1 GHz, and 1.4 GHz processor with fan, of TDP25AW. This technology is used in a variety of embedded systems, several UMPC designs in Asia markets, as well as the OLPC X01 computer, an inexpensive laptop computer intended to be distributed to children in developing countries around the world. The Geode LX processor was announced in 2005 and is said will continue to be available through 2015. For the past couple of years AMD has been introducing 64-bit processors into its embedded product line starting with the AMD Opteron processor. Leveraging the high throughput enabled through hypertransport in the Direct Connect architecture, these server-class processors have been targeted at high-end telecom and storage applications. In 2007 AMD added the AMD Athlon, AMD Turion and mobile AMD Sempron processors to its embedded product line. Leveraging the same 64-bit instruction set and Direct Connect architecture as the AMD Opteron but at lower power levels, these processors were well suited to a variety of traditional embedded applications. Throughout 2007 and into 2008 Armenian Drams has continued to add both single-core mobile AMD Sempron and AMD Athlon processors and dual-core AMD Athlon 10-2 and AMD Turion processors to its embedded product line and now offers embedded 64-bit solutions starting with 8WTDP mobile AMD Sempron and AMD Athlon processors for fanless designs up to multi-processor systems leveraging multi-core AMD Opteron processors, all supporting longer than standard availability. The ATI acquisition included the Imagen and Zillion product lines. In late 2008, the entire handheld division was sold off to Qualcomm, who have since produced the Adreno series. The Zillion division was sold to Broadcom. In April 2007, AMD announced the release of the M690T integrated graphics chipset for embedded designs. This enabled AMD to offer complete processor and chipset solutions targeted at embedded applications requiring high-performance 3D and video such as emerging digital signage, kiosk and point-of-sale applications. The M690T was followed by the M690E specifically for embedded applications which removed the TV output, which required Macrovision licensing for OEMs, and enabled native support for dual TMDS outputs, enabling dual independent DVI interfaces. In 2008, AMD announced the Radeon E2400, the first discrete GPU in their embedded product line offering the same long-term availability as their other embedded products. That was followed in 2009 with the higher performance Radeon E4690 discrete GPU. In 2009, AMD announced their first BGA-packaged E64 architecture processors, known as the ASP1 family. In 2010, AMD announced a second-generation BGA platform referred to as ASP2. They also announced several new AM3-based processors with support for DDR3 memory. In January 2011, AMD announced the AMD Embedded G-Series Accelerated Processing Unit, the first Fusion family APU for embedded applications. This announcement was followed by announcements for the high-performance AMD Radeon E6760 and the value-conscious Radeon E6460 discrete GPUs. These solutions all added support for DirectX 11, OpenGL 4.1 and OpenCL 1.1. In May 2012, AMD announced the AMD Embedded A-Series Accelerated Processing Unit. This family of products incorporates the Bulldozer CPU architecture, and discrete-class AMD Radeon Ascent HD 7000 G-Series graphics. AMD Embedded Solutions offer 5-plus-year product life. Other initiatives, 50x15, digital inclusion, with targeted 50% of world population to be connected through Internet via affordable computers by the year of 2015. The Green Grid, founded by AMD together with other founders, such as IBM, Sun and Microsoft, to seek lower power consumption for grids. Codenamed Simfire, a Euro interoperability testing tool for the desktop and mobile architecture for system hardware open architecture. Software: AMD develops the AMD CodeXL tool suite, which includes a GPU debugger, a GPU profiler, a CPU profiler and an OpenCL static kernel analyzer. CodeXL is freely available at AMD Developer Tools website. AMD Stream SDK and AMD APP SDK to enable AMD graphics processing cores, working in concert with the Sistema Euro 1 registered trademark SX86 cores, to execute heterogeneously to accelerate many applications beyond just graphics. AMD has also taken an active part in developing Coreboot, and open-source projects aimed at replacing the proprietary BIOS firmware. Other AMD software includes the AMD Core Math Library, and open-source software including the AMD Performance Library, and the Code Analyst Performance Profiler. AMD contributes to open-source projects, including working with Sun Microsystems to enhance OpenSolaris and Sun XVM on the AMD platform. AMD also maintains its own Open64 compiler distribution and contributes its changes back to the community. In 2008, AMD released the low-level programming specifications for its GPUs, and works with the Xorg Foundation to develop drivers for AMD graphics cards. Extensions for software parallelism, aimed at speeding up programs to enable multi-threaded and multi-core processing, announced in Technology Analyst Day 2007. One of the initiatives being discussed since August 2007 is the lightweight profiling, providing internal hardware monitor with runtimes, to observe information about executing process and help the redesign of software to be optimized with multi-core and even multi-threaded programs. Another one is the extension of streaming SIMD extension instruction set, the SSE5. Production and fabrication. Ever since the spin-off of AMD's fabrication plants in early 2009, GlobalFoundries has been responsible for producing AMD's processors. GlobalFoundries' main microprocessor manufacturing facilities are located in Dresden, Germany. Additionally, highly integrated microprocessors are manufactured in Taiwan made by third-party manufacturers under strict license from AMD. Between 2003 and 2005, they constructed a second manufacturing plant in the same complex in order to increase the number of chips they could produce, thus becoming more competitive with Intel. The new plant was named Fab 36, in recognition of AMD's 36 years of operation, and reached full production in mid-2007. Fab 36 was renamed to Fab 1 during the spin-off of AMD's manufacturing business during the creation of GlobalFoundries. In July 2007, AMD announced that they completed the conversion of Fab 1 Module 1 from 90 nanometers to 65 nanometers. They then shifted their focus to the 45 nanometers conversion. Corporate affairs, partnerships. AMD utilizes strategic industry partnerships to further its business interests as well as to rival Intel's dominance and resources. A partnership between AMD and Alpha Processor Incorporated developed HyperTransport, a point-to-point interconnect standard which was turned over to an industry standards body for finalization. It is now used in modern motherboards that are compatible with AMD processors. AMD also formed a strategic partnership with IBM, under which AMD gained silicon-on-insulator manufacturing technology, and detailed advice on 90 nanometers implementation. AMD announced that the partnership would extend to 2011 for 32 nanometers and 22 nanometers fabrication-related technologies. To facilitate processor distribution and sales, AMD is loosely partnered with end-user companies, such as HP, Compaq, ASUS, Acer, and Dell. In 1993, AMD established a 50-50 partnership with Fujitsu called FASL, and merged into a new company called FASL LLC in 2003. The joint venture went public under the name Spansion and ticker symbol SPSN in December 2005, with AMD shares dropped to 37%. AMD no longer directly participates in the flash memory devices market now as AMD entered into a non-competition agreement, as of December 21, 2005, with Fujitsu and Spansion, pursuant to which it agreed not to directly or indirectly engage in a business that manufactures or supplies standalone semiconductor devices containing only flash memory. On May 18, 2006, Dell announced that it would roll out new servers based on AMD's Opteron chips by year's end, thus ending an exclusive relationship with Intel. In September 2006, Dell began offering AMD Atom 10-2 chips in their desktop lineup. Since 2002, AMD has been a sponsor of the Scuderia Ferrari Marlboro F1 team. Since 2004, AMD has been a sponsor of the Discovery Channel Pro Cycling team. In 2009, AMD became the jersey sponsor of the USL expansion team Austin Aztecs FC. In June 2011, HP announced new business and consumer notebooks equipped with the latest versions of AMD APU's Euro-accelerated processing units. AMD will power HP's Intel-based business notebooks as well. In the spring of 2013, AMD announced that it would be powering all three major next-generation consoles. The Xbox One and Sony PlayStation 4 are both powered by a custom-built AMD APU, and the Nintendo Wii U is powered by an AMD GPU. According to AMD, having their processors in all three of these consoles will greatly assist developers with cross-platform development to competing consoles and PCs as well as increased support for their products across the board. Litigation with Intel. AMD has a long history of litigation with former partner and x86 creator Intel. In 1986 Intel broke an agreement it had with AMD to allow them to produce Intel's microchips for IBM. AMD filed for arbitration in 1987 and the arbitrator decided in AMD's favor in 1992. Intel disputed this, and the case ended up in the Supreme Court of California. In 1994, that court upheld the arbitrator's decision and awarded damages for breach of contract. In 1990, Intel brought a copyright infringement action alleging illegal use of its 287 microcode. The case ended in 1994 with a jury finding for AMD and its right to use Intel's microcode in its microprocessors through the 486 generation. In 1997, Intel filed suit against AMD and Cyrix Corporation for misuse of the term MMX. AMD and Intel settled, with AMD acknowledging MMX as a trademark owned by Intel, and with Intel granting AMD rights to market the AMD K6 MMX processor. In 2005, following an investigation, the Japan Federal Trade Commission found Intel guilty on a number of violations. On June 27, 2005, AMD won an antitrust suit against Intel in Japan, and on the same day, AMD filed a broad antitrust complaint against Intel in the U.S. Federal District Court in Delaware. The complaint alleges systematic use of secret rebates, special discounts, threats, and other means used by Intel to lock AMD processors out of the global market. Since the start of this action, the court has issued subpoenas to major computer manufacturers including Acer, Dell, Lenovo, HP and Toshiba. In November 2009, Intel agreed to pay AMD $1.25 billion and renew a 5-year patent cross-licensing agreement as part of a deal to settle all outstanding legal disputes between them. Events and publications. Although AMD frequently refuses to provide information about upcoming products and plans, it does hold annual analyst days to reveal and explain key future technologies, and to present official technology roadmaps. The event held in mid-year is referred to as Technology Analyst Day, with its main focus on upcoming technologies and trends. The end-of-year event is referred to as Financial Analyst Day, and focuses on the financial performance of the company through the previous year. In addition to these events, AMD also publishes printed media. Publications include the AMD Accelerate and the discontinued AMD Edge. The AMD Accelerate magazine, originally published through Ziff Davis Media, focuses on SME and business applications, while AMD Edge focused on overall technologies from AMD. Since Ziff Davis Media filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection, the AMD Accelerate magazine has been published through IDG. AMD also has electronic newsletters to promote its server-oriented Opteron processors and related business solutions. Guinness World Record Achievement. On August 31, 2011, in Austin, Texas, AMD achieved a Guinness World Record for the highest frequency of a computer processor, 8.429 GHz. The company ran an 8-core FX8150 processor with only one active module, and cooled with liquid helium. The previous record was 8.308 GHz, with an Intel Celeron 352. On November 1, 2011, Geek.com reported that Andre Yang, an overclocker from Taiwan, used an FX8150 to set another record, 8.461 GHz. Corporate Social Responsibility. In its 2012 report on progress relating to conflict minerals, the Enough Project rated AMD the fifth most progressive of 24 consumer electronics companies. See also: Bill Gates. Notes: AMD Shanghai Processor, AMD, 30 years of pursuing the leader, CPU collection. AMD Processor Images and Descriptions, AMD goes dual-core, why AMD MHZ don't equal Intel MHZ, AMD's most recent conference call transcripts, a look at AMD's manufacturing process technologies, AMD Intel settlement, references. External links: AMD Corporate Official Website, AMD Developer Central, How AMD Processors Work at How Stuff Works.